Securing a blockbuster tie is usually the priority for fighters in UFC, and that's why a lot of thought goes into creating the right kind of matchups. These matchups need to appeal greatly to the audience, and few people have a knack for coming up with blockbuster fights better than Logan Paul. The YouTuber turned boxer and wrestler is now looking to dip his toes in mixed martial arts. Logan Paul vs. Paddy Pimblet. Could it happen? Well, people weren't sure if Logan Paul versus Floyd Mayweather would ever happen, but that one surely did happen. Or was it a dream? So we can't rule this out, especially after the way Paul had been climbing the popularity ladder. UFC wouldn't want to miss out on this. Plus, he's himself considered the possibility of fighting in the UFC, and that means he's definitely interested in a potential showdown. However, until recently, he wasn't sure who would make for the perfect fight, but he's apparently settled on Paddy Pimblet. It would be a pretty big event because Paddy Pimblet, the Scouser, has a lot of backing from Northwest England in particular, and people seem to love his big mouth. Similarly, Paul isn't much different as he's garnered so many fans and viewers over the years from his YouTube channel, and then after landing a highly lucrative exhibition boxing match against Floyd Mayweather. WWE definitely realized Logan Paul's potential and would have wasted no time in bringing him in. So it would almost be foolish for UFC to pass up the opportunity of getting Logan Paul in and making some big bucks off his fight. Logan Paul. Fans would be eating this S up. It's clear from Paul's perspective why this match could be so hyped and why he's interested in fighting Paddy the Baddy. He acknowledges Paddy's ability to get big crowds in, and if Paddy can bring in something close to the night in London last month, then it could be highly profitable for all parties involved. Plus, Paul cleared that he had no personal issues against Paddy, and the fight appealed to him purely because of how much it could sell. He knows that Paddy's very entertaining, has a great way of activating crowds, and he's young. It almost feels like Paul sees a bit of himself in Paddy, and it would be a pretty decent matchup. Of course, UFC is completely different from wrestling and boxing, and Paddy has a clear edge over Paul, but Paul can't be ruled out as he has a way of surprising everyone. He can put in the hard yards, as we saw him put in a lot of weight and get in shape for his bout against Mayweather. Similarly, he wouldn't exactly be a hapless case once he's preparing for his fight versus Paddy. He's already mentioned the weight class and knows Paddy's ability to put on a lot of weight in the offseason. It's interesting to see how he wants Paddy to put on a bit of weight and get to 185, and they can have a UFC match. After all, it would be a pretty big sellout, and fans would definitely pay to watch two very similar folks go at it. Dana White wants Logan Paul. The build-up to a potential Paul Pimblett match isn't only coming from Paul himself. It seems like Dana White also wants the famous YouTuber to fight in the UFC and is now warming up the idea of having him in the octagon. Initially, he wasn't very keen on bringing either of the two Paul brothers to the UFC, but he appeared on Paul's podcast last month and explained he was open to giving Paul a potential opportunity to make an appearance in the UFC. He's not the only one keen on getting Paul to fight in the octagon, as Bellator president Scott Coker gave him a standing invitation to go for the transition towards MMA. Coker seems to be a big fan of Paul and his sportsmanship, as he was also present when Paul lasted more than 20 minutes with arguably the greatest boxer of our generation, Floyd Mayweather. That's why Coker didn't beat around the bush and explained how he would absolutely want Paul to feature in UFC. That's a ring endorsement for Logan Paul, and it seems as if his path to transition towards mixed martial arts is clear if he wishes to go down the road. We saw him apply some of his grappling skills against Mayweather, and he's always looking to add something new to his arsenal, so we wouldn't be surprised to see him make a debut at the octagon. Paul, meanwhile, has his eyes set on a potential opponent as well, and for him, it was always going to be someone whose stock's on the rise, and Paddy the Baddy seems to fit the bill. Belal Muhammad gets his revenge. 6 years and 13 fights later, Belal Muhammad now is a much different fighter than he was. The first time he took on Vicente Luque. The first time, he hadn't prepared for a fight against Luque as he was preparing to face Lyman Good in UFC 205 and ended up losing via knockout to Luque. Over the next half-decade, Muhammad performed at the highest level, losing only one fight in his next 12 and called out Vicente Luque to a rematch. And yes, it was as good as everyone was expecting it to be. Muhammad executed his fight plan to perfection and won via unanimous decision against Luque. For Muhammad, this was a game purely about revenge, as Luque had taken just under 80 seconds to knock him out 6 years ago, and this match wasn't just about the fight. It wasn't a straightforward fight though. Luque made Muhammad work hard for it, but he maintained his wit and composure and managed to ground his opponent in every round of the fight. "This is my hump I had to get over," reacted Muhammad as he snapped Luque's 4-bout winning streak. Muhammad wasted no time in calling out his next opponent, Colby Covington, who he called a coward Karen. Always good to see fighters having a good sense of humor, as Muhammad asked Covington to fight a real challenge rather than beating nobodies. Kamaru Usman's wild proposition to Conor McGregor. The welterweight division in UFC remains one of the most entertaining divisions, and with McGregor targeting a potential return to UFC, it could be in the welterweight division. He's already won 2 titles in 2 different divisions as he attempts to make it 3 in 3, but it wouldn't be a walk in the park for the Irishman. Kamaru Usman is the king of the welterweight division, and he is the man to beat. He will be facing Leon Edwards in what promises to be an absolutely mad event. However, Usman's agent has proposed an idea that borderlines wild, and while we love it, there's a chance that it might not be approved by Dana White. The agent believes that there should be a mini tournament of sorts, with Usman taking on Edwards and McGregor taking on Nate Diaz, who's considering an end to his UFC career. Usman has given McGregor the chance to go for the title if he can beat Diaz. This is a huge statement, and if approved by White, it would mean that McGregor will be a win away from a shot at the welterweight title. It sounds like a fantastic idea for everyone involved, but let's see if White agrees with Usman's agent and allows this to take place. He'll be a little skeptical because fighters' welfare is the primary goal of UFC, and there's a chance that all 4 of the biggest names in the division suffer many injuries in their first fights, let alone in a final showdown. Chris Barnett, the new fan favorite. Chris Barnett was handed the impossible task of taking on a New Yorker, Gian Villante, in New York, as Gian Villante's final fight of his career. You can understand the kind of support Villante would probably had and how everyone in the crowd would be raring him on, but somehow Barnett managed a couple of wins that night, by beating Villante and by winning over the crowd. Barnett was already a likable character, but he was obviously being painted as the villain when asked to take on this fight. That shows how much impact he had on the crowd, who he managed to turn to his favor while he ruined Villante's final fight by stopping him in the second round of UFC 268 in Madison Square Garden. Barnett also explained how he was expecting boos during the weigh-in. Instead, he was met with a lot of cheers and shouts of "Beast Boy." Barnett's already loving life and was happy to receive some random money from UFC because of his NFT and some jerseys with his name on them. He knows that the fans respect him and he respects them. He knows how to get the crowd going, and he understands the entertainment aspect because he says that he's a fan first. It gets easy to see that dreams do finally come true, and more than 10 years after putting in the hard yards, people like Chris Barnett are getting the plaudits they deserve. That's a wrap for this video. Do you have anything to say about a potential Paddy, Paul, or McGregor-Usman fight? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.